Hello, and welcome to the Empowered Learning Podcast. This is your host, Andy Bennett. On today's episode, we welcome Dani Goeppert. Dani is an amazing businesswoman, the founder and CEO of Risen Events, the creator of the Risen Audience Boom, author of Pack the Room, a heart-centered leader that believes in the importance of creating deep relationships, and a rock star of a mom to her 6 kiddos. Welcome, Dani.
Hello, Dani. How are you today?
Hey, Andy. I'm doing lovely. Wonderful to be here.
I appreciate it. And for those that don't know, because no one else would know, this is the third podcast that Dani has recorded today. So she's in such high demand that we were able to just steal a little bit of her time. She's in Austria. Is that correct?
It is.
Yeah. So,
snowy Austria at the moment.
Yeah, it's snowy. Well, we're in snowy Colorado, but opposite side of the world there. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. I really, really appreciate it. It's going to be a fun conversation.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, Andy.
Very cool. Very cool. So you and I have known each other for a while now. I forget how long, 6 months, a year. I literally lose track of time. It feels like we've known each other longer than we probably have. But for those that don't know you, can you just tell them a little bit about yourself, kind of your upbringing, your background, kind of what led you into the field that you're in right now, and then that will kind of drive our conversation moving forward.
All right. Well, we'll have to do a short in a nutshell. Dani in a nutshell is I often get complimented on my English because I live in Austria, but I'm originally Canadian. My husband's German. Yeah. They're like, oh, you're in Austria. Wow, your English is so good. Well, I'm Canadian. I've been living in Europe for the last about 16 years, married to a German who I call the handsomest of men. And we have 6 kids, just had baby number 6 in August.
Wonderful.
And so our house is full. It's loud. I can see my kids running around outside out of my office door here. Luckily, I have an AI noise canceller so that no one hears any of the screaming. But I've been running my own business, I guess you could say, in the online space since about 2018, really kind of stumbling forward in this whole space like many entrepreneurs, and basically stumbled into running virtual events, which didn't exist when I was in high school or years ago. So I would have never put it on my career path, but I kind of stumbled into it after getting into online marketing, and here I am today. I'm the CEO and founder of Risen Events, and we have a small agency that's just been scaling the last year. And yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
I love it. Well, we'll have to unpack the nutshell a little bit more, because I know
can unpack a bit more.
There we go. I love it. So virtual events, I guess for people that maybe have never heard of that concept, like you said, it's fairly new. I think people would probably bring their own ideas of what that term means. I guess in your world, what does a good, and maybe let's put that standard right there. What does a good virtual event look like? What does it consist of? What would the purpose of those be? Just kind of tell us what is that all about?
I think it depends on what the purpose or what the goal is. So the people or my clients who I work with typically are coaches, speakers, service providers. They are businesses who are looking for to grow their audience, grow as a thought leader in their space. They're looking to make more sales, that grow a sales pipeline. So they're really trying to establish themselves in the online space, make some money, and grow an audience. So for me, a successful virtual event needs to be monetized, needs to make some money, and it needs to bring people in, right? So those are kind of like the 2 key factors of a successful event. We have an audience and we're making some money. This isn't the case for every virtual event, right? You could look at a podcast even as a form of virtual event that brings brand awareness. It can bring monetization. It might not. It could be just purely educational. And there's nothing wrong with any of that either. So you can have different types of webinars or conferences, or you see that often in the tech and the corporate space, where there are virtual events that are really for brand awareness purely and educational, bring on sponsors. Maybe it's not so much making money might not be the priority in some of these areas, and that would be successful for them. So I would say it really depends on the end goal of the host or the producer. But in
Gotcha.
my space, it would be, we got money and we have people, new people, ideally.
Right. Okay. I love it. So I guess, and you and I have talked about, what it would look like for me to partner with you for some of our solutions as well. And we're definitely going to continue to have those conversations and move that forward. I think that would be phenomenal. I'd love to get your expertise on that. You mentioned a few other virtual events, for lack of a better term, that people probably have heard of more often, like webinars, like these different things. How would those differ from like a training webinar to a virtual event? I guess, again, everybody has their own purposes, but just generally, how would you say those differ?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So let's start with like what I specialize in, which is lead generating summits, right?
Okay.
So we have lead generating summits that I'm really focused on bringing in collaborative speakers who might benefit the host or the producer of the event. And we bring in a big audience all together and serve a lot of education, and then sell an offer. We sell, it's not just a ticket, there's more to the ticket, and then we sell something after. A webinar, we look at, normally there's just like one person speaking, right? And that's typically what people think of like an event. You have like a headline speaker, and a webinar is definitely just sales focused. Yes, there is some education in there. You want to give people a little bit of what you're offering, but you also want to leave out a little bit so that they're wanting more, and it makes sense to make a purchase. But you are the main one who's speaking. There's not really any outside influences coming in that webinar. Often they're pre-recorded now, not a lot of live engagement. There are live webinars as well, but what we're seeing a lot nowadays is, pre-recorded. It's definitely a sales thing. And we see things like challenges. There's a lot of challenges going on. This is also a way of bringing in people, engaging them as a community. We don't really see community aspect in webinars, right? We see more of a community aspect in challenges where people are coming together. They get a tangible, practical outcome being a participant in that event. But the host is really, there's only, again, one person who is hosting, and maybe they're teaching a framework or a step-by-step process. And then by the end of that event, there's a takeaway for the audience. And challenges are really great for selling something that's, maybe you're trying to sell something that's higher ticketed, over 1,000, maybe over 3,000, something like that. That's when I say higher ticketed. And it works really well if you already have an audience. You already have people who are following you, who are interested in you. You already have a product that's working really well. So there's different forms, different ways that I call them all virtual events, because they're all ways of bringing people together online in a virtual space. There's just kind of different points, different reasons to them, and they all have different nuances, I guess. Podcast is also a virtual event, right? But you're bringing it's more intimate. It's a typically discussion, something like what we're having, or maybe a short informational topic, right? But you're not typically pitching or selling something right off of it, not like a webinar, right? It's more a long-lasting event, more of a way of warming up and getting to know an audience for a longer period of time. So I guess that would be a longer event, but the events that I do are, just a few days, and we're trying to compact it, create momentum in a short frame of time to get people engaged, to get them excited. So there's community, there's sales, and there's action happening.
I love it. So, and I don't know what to put here, but I've been on those webinars too. It's kind of like, what's the hook? You come to the webinar for this, but then there's the upsell, then there's the VIP, there's all of this
Something
stuff
that happens after.
Right. It makes sense. It sounds like one of the key differences between a webinar and like a lead gen summit or these, larger virtual events where there's multiple speakers, you're kind of getting the whole enchilada, right? You are coming like, this is the event. It's not, here's a taste test for something later on. So this is why you come to get all of this information. Like you said, the human interaction, the momentum, this idea of kind of building momentum into the future.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
Okay.
I think with the summit, something else that makes a difference with these a larger lead gen summit, as an example, is we're really coming with a service aspect first.
Okay.
I'm not saying you don't have that with a webinar,
Sure.
but the way I like to design my events is, okay, how can we serve everyone with a kind of a buffet of information that is going to bring them in a journey
Right.
towards you, you, the host, right? And often when people create an event or a webinar, they're like, "Well, I'm the hero, right? I'm the
Right.
one who is highlighted."
Yeah.
But with summits, we try not to highlight ourselves. We want to serve first, and then there's kind of reciprocity happening. So I
Gotcha.
would say that's also a difference there as well.
Gotcha. I want to pull on this thread a little bit more just because we kind of jumped into the deep end. We'll have to backtrack a little bit and get some background as far as kind of a little bit more of unpacking Dani in a nutshell here. But I know that you and I have talked about kind of the differences between virtual and on site or in person events. Obviously, to your point at the beginning, there are benefits. There are, depending on your purpose, one may make more sense than the other. But in this post-COVID world, the idea of having virtual or hybrid events, I think is something that we're all opening our eyes to, especially education. I think the workforce is just realizing that, like, maybe I don't need to be in the office all the time to be able to be productive and do this thing. So I guess give me your thoughts on site. Where does that fit in? Is it a hybrid model? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it doesn't have to be a competition between the two. And often we think, oh, either or, but each is unique and each has a really specific use. And I think when you start looking at them for the strengths that they have, like in person, you have different strengths than you would in a virtual event. A virtual event, you can reach so many more people, and it's a much lower barrier to entry into your world than in person. For instance, in person, you got to get people there. Probably costs you a lot more money to put on an in-person event than it would a virtual event. So for both the attendee and the host, right? That there's a larger barrier to entry. An in-person one, you can't you can't I don't think you can replicate the conversations you have over meals or coffee breaks that you would have in a virtual space. And I think it would be hard to say, like, yeah, we're going to get rid of like that was hard in COVID. Like, oh, I'm sorry, we have to get rid of this in-person stuff. And we tried to do it virtually. It is really difficult. You can't. I don't think you can do that. But in the virtual space, you have like this, it's so easy just to hop into any home at any time, and people are a lot more inclined to just show up and, in their pajamas in their home, not their pajamas, and tune into something that they might not have because there's a snowstorm happening, right? And they can't drive to that conference. And I know, there's a bunch of conferences happening right now. People are trying to travel, especially on your side. And there's storms, it's going to keep them from going. They're not going to get that information. They're not going to be able to go there, but you can actually have that same information in a virtual space. There are differences. Like, you're probably not going to be able to sit and watch someone for 2 hours in a virtual space. You might have a better attention span in a in-person setting. So there's definitely those differences there. But I think going forward, we'll always have to have both, because you're going to, sometimes it's just easier to quickly put on a virtual event than spending, months and months trying to put together an in-person one, and there's a lot more risk involved. If the tickets are getting sold virtual, you can pivot. It's very easy to change things up. Someone can't make it, you can bring someone on quickly. So there's so many more things that you can do and experiment with in a virtual space that's not going to cost. It's not going to cost you time. It's not going to cost you money, and it's going to cost really minimal effort. So I don't think virtual will go away. It's just going to continue.
Yeah, I love it. No, and those are all very, very valid points. Again, taking notes, just me personally, but I'm hoping that the listeners are getting a lot of that out of this too. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. If we can backtrack just a little bit, we kind of, like I said, jumped into the nuts and the bolts of what you're working on now, which I'm sure there's more that we can kind of threads we can pull on that. But you mentioned marketing at one point. Kind of what was the turning point in your life that got you to the point where it's like, okay, I'm in this space. I know you're a mama, and that takes a lot of your time, rightfully so. But you're also a professional and an author, and I mean, you've got more accolades than most out there. So, what was your turning point into the virtual events, and what attracted you to that specific space?
And now, a brief commercial from today's sponsor.
Hey guys, Andy Bennett's owner and president of Interactive Learning. Our awesome little company has been around for close to 20 years now, and our core purpose and mission is to empower the future of education with innovative solutions through engaging technologies and leadership programs. We are blessed to work with a wide range of markets, including K-12, trades, corporate, and government. Interactive Learning is also proud to serve our nation's JROTC programs with over 3,000 units and 500,000 cadets. For our podcast listeners today, we have a special offer just for you. It's called our Class Tech Discovery Session. This is incredibly helpful for teachers, administrators, tech personnel, really anybody involved in helping students learn with technology. Here's what you get with the Class Tech Discovery Session. It starts with a short Zoom call. We'll talk about your class needs, your wants, desires, really your class wish list of ed tech. Then we'll touch on your timelines and budgets, plus any constraints that your district might be facing. Next, we'll look at new tech and new solutions, the latest and greatest out there that might be applicable to you and your district. And if you're interested, we'll even demonstrate these crazy cool, cutting-edge technologies just for you. Finally, we'll give you an idea of costs and professional development and how we and our team will support you moving forward. Again, that is Interactive Learning's Class Tech Discovery Session. Request your session now by texting Discovery to 970-739-2229 or emailing Discovery to andy@intlrn.com. Request your school's highly informative Class Tech Discovery Session today.
And now, back to the Empowered Learning Podcast.
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I've always loved events.
Okay.
I love events because I believe they create opportunity
Okay.
for, if you can just imagine, you hear someone speaking on stage, or you listen to a podcast recently and they presented a new idea or maybe a story that you resonated with, or a new belief, right?
Okay.
Often we hear someone and we're like, I'm kind of like that person. If they could do it, so can I.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
That's the new thought that happens. We get these new beliefs. And I believe that's where the strengths of events are,
Right.
is these potential to transform and create new trajectories in life. The same within school, right? I remember sitting in some of my classes and there was a teacher who presented a new idea and it just hit me in that moment with the right way. And I was like, I think I could do that.
Right.
I think that's what I want. Right. And it shifted a thought pattern in the same way for events. So in a few years ago, I was getting into the online space because really, I don't know. I just was like, I want to learn something. I love learning, right? And I was looking at what can I do with a bunch of kids at home that I could still do for myself. I really felt like I wanted to try something new. Maybe I want to do more photography or digital design, graphics. Like, I'm interested in all those things.
Right.
So I was kind of on a journey myself, finding me or other things that I could do besides cooking spaghetti and changing diapers and all of that stuff. Not that I do love being a mom, but I wanted to be able to do some more from my home. I didn't want to go out and find another job. I just wanted to be at home, but also do things that I really liked and brought me life. And learning is one of them. And so that year, it was 2018, and I kind of was looking into different ways. I don't know if you've heard of Udemy. I don't even know if it's still around, but it's a website with all the courses, all these cheap courses. And I was like, oh, look, there's a whole bunch of cheap courses. I'll do it. I'll get my MBA on there. I'll do this and this and this. Right. So I bought a whole bunch of courses. with all these dreams of learning all this different stuff. And from there, basically, I ended up in something called a summit, an online summit. And I was like, I had no idea what an online summit was or online event. I had never heard of any of that stuff, or a funnel. And they were like using all these terms, but the summit was called the work at home school or something like that. Work at home school. And they had basically presented all these new ideas or interesting ideas, possibilities of being able to work from home. And they highlighted different experts in the area of Amazon, FBA, and eBay, and blogging, and all these different things that people were doing from home, earning an income. And I was like, oh, that's neat. I could learn and do something from home and earn an income. That sounds fantastic, right? I want to do that. And so I got really excited. And every day I would like tune in. It was like 3 days long, and I could watch these different interviews with all these different experts. And then it would shut down for you'd only get to watch it for like 24 hours, and then it would move on to the next day. And I was glued to my desk because I was like, this is so interesting. Like I was already in this journey. I was already interested in kind of looking around what I could do. And I was like, oh, well, hey, I want to learn something new. I also want to earn some money. Like maybe this is something for me. And I kind of got into blogging from there. I was like, okay, I could write. I like writing. I'm not bad at it. And
very good at it.
I could earn money helping things. I could earn money helping people and writing. That sounds like fun. So it led me into this world of blogging. And led me into learning WordPress and all the tech behind WordPress. And I purchased my first program about blogging. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to invest into myself, which was really hard for me to do because I thought I'm going to steal money from my family in order to learn something new for myself, which a lot of moms have struggled with that. So I really struggled with that. Learned WordPress, it was frustrating. And I built up this blog. And I was trying to do all the right things. And it was talking about like growing your email list and marketing and growing an audience. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? I need to write content, and I need to set up an email provider, all these tech terms. And I was like, I'm going to figure it out. Right. So I did that. And like at the end of the first year, I had like 20 people on my email list from every week writing content and creating all this stuff. I was like, I had 20 people. And I look back at that year and I was like, that's disappointing. I spent so much time and effort learning all the stuff, and I had 20 people. And did I earn any money? Well, I earned $7 because by the end of that year, I learned that I needed a product to sell. So I made a little ebook at that time for that blog, and I sold one copy of it for $7. And I was like, oh, you need something to sell if you want to earn money. So lots of revelations there. It ended up getting hacked by the end of the year. So my blog got destroyed by hackers. So all that work that I did was destroyed. And by the end of it, I was like, you know what? Screw that. I don't want to do that anymore. That was tedious. It took so long. I got 20 people on my email list, and most of them are family and friends who just maybe feel sorry for me or want to support me when I do, right? So I was like, I don't know if blogging's for me. This is not a lot of fun. There has to be, and this is the thought, there has to be a faster way. There has to be something that's more fun. I like to have fun. I like doing things that bring me joy. And so I was like, what do I do? And in this process, I came across ClickFunnels, and it's a funnel building software. And if you don't know what funnels are, it's basically a website. That just leads people to a sale, right? To sell something, but it's very, very simple. It led me to copywriting. It led me into marketing and all of this. And once I was in that community, it was like a year or two later, I was designing products for homeschooling moms because I was homeschooling at that point. I was like, I like doing graphics, and maybe I could sell digital products, right? But I was having a hard time selling them because I didn't understand marketing, and I didn't understand copywriting. I didn't understand how to sell to people at all. So that being said, I saw that they had this program. ClickFunnels had this thing called 2CCX Club or something. And it was very expensive. But I was really serious about my business at this point. I had tanked with the blog. I had tried some other things. I tried drop shipping. But I wanted to make this business thing online work. So I invested into this program, and that's where I learned about funnels and events, summits, of online summits. And in this program, they were talking about building an audience using a summit before you are even known, before anyone knows you as a business, like actually launching your idea using an event. I was like, all right, let's do this. I just invested too much money that, my butt's on fire and I got to do something to earn it back. So let's do this event. And this was together with my sister. It was a business called Wild Happy Family. And together we put on our first summit called the Courageous Mama Summit, which was specifically for mamas who were homeschooling, and we wanted to encourage them. And we also wanted to earn some money and figure out, like, okay, how do we create a product? How do we sell, using this event? How do we use the things that we learned in marketing and funnels from this event? And the event went really well. Like, we had over 1,000 people register for it. We built it in, I think under 90 days, we put together this virtual event, and we made our first 4 figures in our business. And, for a lot of people, 4 figures doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're struggling to sell $27 or $7 to one person and no one's buying, and you have a hard time selling $97 to one person, like 4 figures is like, wow, finally we've done something. So with the success of that event, I was like, I love that. Like, that was so much more fun than doing the blog. It was 3 days, 1,000 people on my email list, 1,000 people, way more money than 1 year of my blogging. And I'm not saying blogging doesn't work. I know a lot of people who have full-time incomes with their blog. So I'm not saying it doesn't work, but this was for me so much more fun. And we, from there, I actually shifted gears, and I was like, you know what, instead of doing these graphics and designing these educational products, which I love. I love designing educational products for kids, especially when I was homeschooling, because I was thinking about my kids and making neat, just neat things I could print out, activities that we could do together and learn together. I was like, I really want to work with women specifically, or now it's entrepreneurs who would like to use events in their business, and I can kind of walk them through the process we used for that first event. And now we've done many more events, and it's a different business. It's Risen Events. We don't do Wild Happy Family anymore. That was just kind of the diving board into it, and realizing, oh, I actually really enjoy this, and I think I want to do more of it. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool that through your journey, you found something that you love. And I think that's what, we want that for our kids, right? It's like, making a paycheck is great, but if you don't love what you're doing, then, there's got to be a better way. So kudos to you for finding that. You had made a comment there, and I kind of changed the font there because I wanted to, or the color, because I wanted to come back to that. Being a mama and wanting to, have your space in the family as far as providing for the family, but also being a caretaker, and being an entrepreneur. I mean, you're wearing so many hats, and I applaud you for that. But you had made the comment of something like, stealing money from the family to do this. I can imagine, and I'm not a mom, obviously, but I can imagine there's a lot of moms out there that have that guilt of, can I really invest in myself? Because that is one, taking away time from my family, and 2, taking away money. Tell us a little bit about that, because I can imagine that there are other moms out there that are like, I feel the same way. So tell us about that journey and that process.
I think as moms, we're kind of experts in mom guilt. It's like anything that we do that is apart from our family, we have this horrible conscience that's saying you can't do anything besides your family, and that you feel guilty about it, right? Yeah, that was hard. I mean, that was hard for me at the beginning because we didn't have a lot of money. So it did cost something, right? It did cost something from our family. Thankfully, and in my case, my husband is so supportive, right? He's so supportive. He was like, yeah, you know what? If you want to do it, I stand by you. Like, let's test it out. Even if the money doesn't get, there's no return on it, I just want to see you trying and learning and growing, right? And I think our marriage really benefits from that, because we both invest into our education because we love learning together, and then we get to
Right.
share it with each other, and that keeps our marriage really great as well.
Mm.
So that's just like a kind of a reflection on the last few years, is like, I think that investment wasn't just good for myself, but it's also good for our marriage because it gives us new things to discuss. I'm interested in different things, and life is not stagnant. But definitely in that time when I did,
Right.
before I had that mindset,
Mhm.
my mindset was any money that's invested into me is taken away from my family. But
Right.
that's not the truth.
Right.
The truth is, and money invested into me does benefit my marriage and my family, because, mama is, sharing and educating my kids in the ways that I'm being newly educated. I get to show them that
Sure.
learning doesn't stop after school, right?
Right.
That even as an adult, I'm still figuring things out. I'm still interested in things. I'm still asking questions, and I'm showing them that I can be courageous and bold, even though I'm old, right? Maybe I'm not old to, I'm old to them,
Right.
but so there's all these benefits that I look at now, but in that moment when you have all of these thoughts that are saying they're trying to hold you back. And I think that happens with any time that you kind of step forward and do something new. As a mom, I'm speaking, but I'm sure
Right.
this is the same. There's always friction, right? There's always resistance that comes against that new thought and that new idea. And that was the friction, the resistance that I had to overcome, was like, is this worth it? Is it beneficial? Am I really stealing from my family? And
Right.
it did take me a while to get
Yeah.
over it. Like, it didn't happen overnight. I still had those thoughts for a while. And now I'm kind of, I think I'm generally over it. Now it's more the time thing. Okay, now I'm spending a lot more time. Am I stealing? Is and then the next question comes is, how do you juggle, right? Or how do you balance
Right.
work and life? And I think there is no balance there. That it's non-existent. You can't have
Right.
balance. It's either often project-based, season-based. I have a newborn
Okay.
baby, or she's not newborn. She's 5 months old now.
Mhm.
So she needs more of me, so I can't work as much.
Huh.
Right? I can't invest into the way I would
Right.
like to invest into things because I know that she needs me more. But thankfully, now I'm at a point in my business where I also have a team, a small team, but I can start delegating tasks. I had to learn how to do those things, and in order for me to pay attention to my family a little bit more. So it's definitely a process.
Right.
But I understand those questions, and I think you just kind of figure it out as you go along, as well.
Right. I love this. Balance is a myth. I think everybody is kind of searching for and just yearning for this mysterious thing that's just out there, that, oh, once I get to this balance of juggling 20 things on the work side, 20 things on the family side, then things will settle in and it'll be fine. And I agree. I think part of the I don't know, just the growth process and just accepting the fact that is not going to happen. And to your point, like, it's okay right now in this season that I'm going to focus on my newborn baby. That's where our time and effort needs to be. And then we can leverage and get back to other people. And I'd love to get your idea on the type of people that you work with. You said that your agency is somewhat new. Obviously, having people that you can rely on is an important aspect. So as you're bringing on new folks, or just the people that you're working with in your agency with Risen Events, what kind of people do you just love working with?
Oh, that is a good question. I love working with people who are really clear. I'm like trying to think, really clear and responsive in what they want, who are open to trying out new things together with us, who are, how else? I'm trying to think of some of my favorite clients without naming names. Yeah, who are really interested in the people aspect, like impact first. They're not just like, we need to make sure that we have like a good ROI. I don't think I'd enjoy working with people who are just like we need that money. Like, okay, no, we want to make sure that we're serving people first, that but they're also business savvy and
Right.
interested in, you know, marketing, different techniques.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely communicative, clear, people first,
Yep.
pleasant, not negative, you
Mhm.
know, someone that
Right.
I can laugh with and have fun. So we don't have to be friends, but the relationship can be easy.
Mhm.
Yeah, in
Yep.
that way.
Yep.
Yep.
I love it. I concur with all of those. Those make good work associates there. So, well, and I think I need to come up with a new tagline. I always say time flies when you're having fun, which is true on every episode, but
Every
it just
episode.
really does. There's so many fun conversations that we could kind of branch off to. So maybe we'll have you back for another one. But let's jump into the grab bag question here. I'm looking at our list here. I think probably one that makes the most sense in this conversation is there a particular life lesson that you've learned that you would like to pass on to others? Is whether that's, you know, the people you work with your kiddos, what life lesson would you most want to pass on to others?
Yeah. So I would say I guess you could say a theme or a motto is, well, there's two. Flexibility is our strength,
Okay.
right? Because things don't go the way you want in business
Mhm.
or in family. I traveled a lot with my kids. It's miserable if you are hoping that everything you plan works
Mhm.
out, because it doesn't. You just need to laugh that off. And it's the same
Mhm.
with events. It's the same when you're launching something new. It's the
Mhm.
same when you're uh, creating something or going out. Like, generally it all gets messed up and you have to kind
Right.
of like laugh at all the problems, right? Ha ha
Mhm.
ha. So flexibility is our strength, and just embrace that. The
Okay.
next is, it's all about relationship,
Mm.
because I really do believe that, you know, when you're impacting someone's life, when you're looking for a new job, when you're looking for new opportunities, when you want to impact, or when you're feeling down and stuck, it's often the relationships that something happens, something you hear, something someone suggests to you. If you need help, it's all about that relationship, and you see that in business, you see that in education.
Right.
It's all about relationships. So those would be kind of the two themes that I are very, very prevalent in my life,
Mhm.
and I think are probably good core, like fundamental lessons that I pass on to my children as
Mhm.
well, because
Absolutely.
we go through it all. Yeah.
Right. Very good. I love it. Those are wonderful. All right. So wrapping up here, all of the guests of the Empowered Learning Podcast get the same three key questions. So question number one, Dani, go, is who is the leader that you admire the most and try to emulate?
So for this, I was thinking about, like, I don't have anyone famous that I can share, but I
That's all
can
right.
share. There's a family that we're good friends with, and
Okay.
we worked in missions for a number of years, our family. So
Okay.
we lived in Ukraine, we've gone to Africa, we've
Wow.
you know, done all sorts of things in
Mhm.
our space. And there's a family that we've been walking with for many years, and they are leaders in their space. They
Okay.
have 5 kids themselves, and they're the ones who actually brought this all about relationship
Mm.
thing. I think, you know, probably 10 years ago or 13 years ago, when we just met them, and they how they developed teams, because we were working with them. They were leaders in one of the first teams we worked in,
Okay.
and how they developed us as a team was very holistic,
Mm.
and it was really centered around food and relationship.
Mm.
And just from those early experiences with them, like as a young family, we had 1 kid when we first started working with them, and then
Mm. Mhm.
2 when we kind of ended our time. Those were some of the most powerful times,
Wow.
because we would just have these moments, these conversations set around food that
Mm.
were like little events. They were little
Mm.
opportunities. And my heart was
Mhm.
opened and transformed
Wow.
in the conversations and the time and the food that they invested into me. So they really showed me a really neat way of, maybe not neat is not the right word. It's deeper than that, right?
Mhm.
And so just seeing them and how they live their lives, and we're still connected and we're still friends today, and what they do and how they live out life with their family, the decisions they make, how they go through difficult times, has always resonated with me. And I always look to them, because they've just impacted us so much in simply being there
Right.
and eating food with us and talking with us.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm a firm believer that the dinner table is a powerful, powerful place to build relationships, whether that's family or friends. And so I love that. Very good. I make sure that you share this with them. I'm sure that you probably don't want to share their names, so make sure that they hear this, because I'm sure that would make a big impact on their hearts. So make sure they hear this. All right. Question number 2, Dani. What learning, so we're at the beginning of 24 right now, what learning, looking back on 2023, has most impacted you?
Learning has most impacted me. That's a difficult question. So I've been doing a lot of learning this year. It's like every year. Every year I've been learning all sorts of stuff.
That you're a lifelong learner, so that's hard to.
Yeah, I am. Okay, let's say let's look at one lesson that's really stuck with me this year, and it was simply a one session from John Maxwell that I listened to him. Yeah, I was in Costa Rica. He was at a conference I was at, and he shared one session. It wasn't even that long. It was like 20 minutes or half an hour long.
Wow.
And he shared about failure. He shared about failure, and he shared about learning lunches. Learning lunches is another topic, but I love that. He shared about failure and how he shared this real quick story about how he was working with a CEO, and he was asking the CEO if if you were to ever redo it, what mistakes would you not redo? Basically, what mistakes would you get rid of? And the CEO was like, I wouldn't redo any of them, because all of those mistakes have made me who I am today.
Wow.
And when John Maxwell shared that, I was like, yeah, that really reframes failure.
Right.
Like, to embrace it, because that is actually shaping me to be the leader, the educator, the person that I am becoming and I want to become. So instead of thinking of like, oh, I would have redone that, I would have done that differently, like embracing it and being like, no, this is the process. Flexibility is my strength. This is the process that is creating me who I need to be.
Very, very good. And then learning lunches, do you want to comment on that real quick before we jump to the next one?
Yeah, sure. Learning lunches, it's not a big thing, but really, and I'm sure you could like Google learning lunches. John Maxwell is basically he takes someone out every month who he knows who's like better than him in something, like a better father, better businessman, a better author, anyone that he knows that he's like, man, that's a better person. And he's been doing it for 40 years. He takes him out for lunch. He flies to different places to meet this person. And then he has a list of 7 or 8 questions that he goes through with this person. And they're very interesting questions. A lot, what about failure, what they've learned, basically learns all about them. And he has like 2 questions at the very end that he said has made all the difference in his growing his business and his network. And the last 2 questions are, how can I serve you? And the very last question is, who do I know? Who do you know that I should know? So those are the last 2 questions. And he said those last 2 questions have really opened up all these opportunities that never existed before. So that's learning lunches in a nutshell.
Love it. Very good. I'm running out of room. There's so much great content here. I love it. Okay. Last question, Dani. Last one of your marathon podcast recording day here. Thank you so much and man, you're bringing energy. It's not like you're phoning it in here. It's really, really good stuff. I really appreciate it. Last one, per the name of the podcast, Empowered Learning. You've got kiddos, you've got clients, you can whatever lens you want to put this through. What would you do if you could wave your magic wand to empower learning for future generations?
I'd make it a lifestyle. I'd look at it as a lifestyle. Right? As something that we could all love and learn and show to our kids and our future generations that it's not just done in a formal setting and it's finished. That's probably because of my homeschool background as well, right? That learning is all around us, and that's something that we try to cultivate in our family is like this love of learning and of discussions, sitting around a table, whether we're going for walks, like it's always there. And for our family, it's a very high value. So I think, empowered learning for future generations should always revolve around whether we're waking up, standing, walking, sitting, talking, showing our kids and showing the people around us, like this is a lifestyle. We're always learning. We're curious, and it's good to be curious, and it's good to mess up, and it's good to fail, and it's good to keep pressing in and asking for those things and developing our minds. It's good for our marriages and our relationships, and it's good for us as, we look at research. It's good for when you grow older, that you don't need to retire and die, but you can retire and learn and still be of value. So I think that's how I would empower learning.
Love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Dani. This has been an absolute pleasure. Again, thank you for your time, for your energy, for your expertise in all of this. I'm super excited to get this out to our listeners because I'm sure that it will impact a lot of folks. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I'm sure we will talk soon.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Andy.
All right, thanks, Dani.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.